Okay, sir. Now go ahead, sir.
Om. 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 Om Sri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Sri Saraswatyai Namaha. Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidparam. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Punaktu Sahavidyam Karavavakai Tejasvinavahi Damastu Ma Vidvishabhai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Yadat Sarvani Bhutani Yadat Sarvani Bhutani Pradibhanti Sthitani Cha Yatrai Vopasamam Yanti Tasmai Satyatmane Namaha. Jnata jnanam tata jneyam drashta darshana drishyabhuः karta hedu kriya jasmat tasmai jnanatmane namaha. Spruganti sikara yasmat anandasyambare vanau sarvesam jivanam tasmai brahmanandatmane namaha. Ivi bhumau tadakarau kase bahirandasya me vibhuhu yo vibhatya vabhasatma tasmai sarvatmane namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Today we will do the summary for section 66 through 83. Section 66. The mystic art of destroying the mind from one absolute numerous come into existence. When one gives up the illusory concept of multiplicity of souls, he became the self. Jiva is nothing but mind stuff, chitta. The world dissolves when the mind is transcended. The illusory awareness of birth, growth, death, heaven, hell, etc. are nothing but the wanderings of the chitta. The world process is like a snake projected on the rope of pure consciousness. It is the illusion of the mind that gives a rise to world process. Wisdom is the only remedy for curing the disease of the world process. All you have to renounce is desire, which is illusory and empty anyway. Whatever object you desire, renounce it in your mind. Mentally renounce your attachment. Continue to perform your duties, keeping the mind balanced in gain and loss. Section 67. The nature of the soul. By force of Maya, Brahman manifests itself through the numerous individual souls. Every soul is Brahman. The world is but an illusory modification of the Absolute. Pressured by sankalpas, the egoistic desire of the past, an individual soul continues to pass through numerous embodiments. It is consciousness in the state of motion that brings about the existence of the jiva and karma, destiny, and the cause effect relationship. Consciousness becomes identified with both ignorance and the effect of ignorance. Just as waves arise in the ocean, so too do the experiences of the world. Even the concept of time and space arise from the mind. The pure consciousness is the ultimate analysis of all that goes to compose a human personality as it manifests itself as mind, chitta, and ego. All four statuses, including Turiya, arise in Brahman, sustained in Brahman, and dissolved in Brahman. There is no relationship between Brahman and the world. The world assets itself in the heart of the ignorant, like a non existent ghost terrifies a child. That is why the world, though non existent, appears to exist. Burdened by the complexes of the mind, the soul is unable to discover its essential nature. The physical body and all its realities are projections of the astral body constituted of the mind. Section 68 through 83, the story of Karkari. See, Vashishta told the story of demoness Karkati to explain the insight into mystic life that leads to self-realization. Karkadi, a gigantic demoness who lived in the Himalayas, known as Vishvuchitta, the needle-shaped affliction, when she was unenlightened, and as Anaya Vattika, the remover of injustice after she attained establishment. Enlightenment. Karkadi, the terrible demoness, desired to devour all living beings to satisfy her hunger. To acquire that power, she practiced intense austerity for a long time. When Brahma appeared before her and offered her a boon, Karkadi asked the boon of becoming as small as a needle in order to enter into the vitals of people without getting caught. Brahma offered that boon, but said she can hurt only those who are lacking dharma. Karkari took the form of a simple needle and entered into the bodies of others in the form of various diseases such as plague, cholera, etc., and continued to feed on the flesh and blood of living beings. But soon she realized with her tiny body she could not consume vast quantities of food. Karkadi is Maya in its aspect of avidya. Karkadi realized that she lost her previous body due to ignorance. She decided to regain her old body and began practicing austerity. Brahma appeared and offered her a boon. But now Karkadi feels peaceful. She has attained nirvana. She felt liberated. So she kept quiet. Brahma said that she is enlightened. However, since she started the austerity to regain her old body, she would attain it. She would be an enlightened demon. Brahma also said that she would eat only those who are unenlightened. She would destroy those who are sunk in sinful deeds. That is why she was known as Anyaya Vatika. The transformed form of Karkadi is symbol of Maya in its aspect of Vidya. While ignorance leads one to delusion and bondage, Vidya enables one to overcome delusion and to attain enlightenment. Hari Om.
Beautiful. Very nice summary. Now, very good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
It's a good idea to have this kind of summaries so that to catch up on, so that we can remember what happened in the last week. And so you can see how in the first chapter we talked about the Karma Yoga, and now in this beautiful story of Karkati, that we see that even if you might have a demon body, okay, you might be enlightened. Okay, so just by physical appearance, you cannot judge a person, you cannot judge a jiva. That's the uh, conclusion that I take. And so, because we usually easily make judgments of people because of their physical appearance, and so we should be very careful. And we need to judge ourselves, not judge others. And so we know all those things, but we continue to identify with our BMI and continue to be, what do you call, affected by this Maya. And so we have to convert ourselves from avidya Maya to Vidya Maya by living a sattvic life, a virtuous life. Now we are in page 33 is finished. So we got to go to 35. There, Karkati meets a, a king and his minister, and is a beautiful story of conversation between them and her. And so we are going to read that one. And Swamiji has really, really condensed the descriptions very much. That's why you see that he has condensed all these chapters from 68 to 83. I try to read every chapter from the other book. Sometimes it becomes exhausting, and sometimes I really don't understand some of those translations that the author has made. And another calm thing is Karkati is asked questions to the king and this minister, and that whole chapter is just questions, 78. And then in 79, the minister starts answering questions. In 80, the king start answering questions. And so I was trying to see if I could learn something more from the other book, but it is so difficult because they here in this book, Swamiji takes question and answer in the in the same chapter, but it is not so in the other book. So let us read that. Nag, you want to continue, sir? The
Are you
first two paragraphs.
Karkati's questions to test the wisdom of the king of Keratas. Sri Vashishta continued, one dark night, Karkati was looking for ignorant souls to eat. She prowled through a dense forest where it so happened that King Vikrama, the king of Keratas, and his minister were wandering, looking for the hideouts of robbers and thieves. Mistaking these two, the king and his minister, for ignorant souls, the terribly formed Karkati rushed towards them in order to devour them. Seeing them fearless, she wanted to test their knowledge and determined to kill them if they proved to be lacking in spiritual wisdom.
Comment?
No, sir. Is it the same as the Vikramaditya?
No, no, it is different.
Okay.
There, every time that he answers the question, the ghost goes back to the tree.
Right.
Here, all those things don't happen. So,
Ah, yeah, here it is the other way.
right. So, okay. And Padmaja is not here. Rakesh Kumar, you want to read, sir?
Hari Om, sir. The following are some of the questions asked by Karkati and their answers given by the king. What is that subtle atom which contains millions of words like waves in the ocean? The self, due to its subtlety, is figuratively described as an atom. It contains millions of words like waves in the ocean. It is the reality behind all that exists. Question: what is that which is void and at the same time full? What is that which is non existent in the eyes of ignorant but existent in the eyes of the enlightened? Answer: this world is void and non existent from the point of view of enlightened, but existent and full of multiplicity from the point of view of the ignorant. One more, Doctor?
No, you want to comment?
Okay. Yeah, there are two things they're talking about. First thing, because she's trying to check them out, they are know about the knowledgeable because she's allowed to eat only they are ignorant people. She can't eat we are knowledgeable. So the question she asked, they're very good because what is subtle atom which contains the millions of words like waves in the ocean? And she compares the self because self is so subtle and it is just compared to the atom contains million of words like waves in the ocean, and this is the reality behind that exists, like this is the Brahman she's talking about.
Right.
Second question is what is which is void and at the same time full? what is that which is non-existent in the eyes of ignorant, but existent in the eyes of enlightened. So she's telling about the enlightened people, they know the Brahman, but ignorant people, they are indulged in the Maya. They are like they think no, it's real. They don't think it's a illusory. So they are kind of caught in the trap because they are point of view, they don't know. And the person who is like a who knows the Brahman, he know what it is, and he can see that it is full. But the people who are not knowing, they think it is just the imaginary.
Right. So you can see, second question is a little tricky. Uh, what is that is void at the same time full? So it depends upon which one you are talking about, void or full. So for a ignorant person, the Brahman is void, meaning there is no Brahman. They cannot see, they say, oh, there is no Brahman. So they become Nastikas. But for a wise man, what all he sees is everything is nothing but Brahman. And looking at the other way, the ignorant man sees the whole world and he says, hey, everything is nothing but this world different from me. But for the wise man, all this is nothing but that Brahman alone. Just all this world really does not exist. So you can look at it in both the ways. So, Ratnam, I want to read the next two question and answers, sir. Amma.
Okay. It is the Kakati asked the question here. Who am I? Who are you? What is that which moves and yet is immovable? King Vikrama answers, you are essentially Brahman. I am essentially the same non-dual reality. The self is neither I nor you, but due to ignorance, it is identified with illusory names and forms. It is this very self that moves and at the same time does not move. But it is the self that sustains the realities of time and space. Those who are enlightened realize it to be the immovable and the all-pervading reality. It moves faster than the mind. The question, what is that which is ever realized and yet has to be realized through numerous efforts? What is that which is not attained by the ignorant, while the wise attain it in its fullness? And then King Vikrama answers, Brahman is the essential reality in every person. But as long as the subtle desires of the minds are not dissipated by the light of knowledge, so long one is unable to discover one's essential nature, the self, which is the ever-present reality, is conceived as a distant goal by the unenlightened. It is the outgoing mind that creates an illusory distance between the self and the individual. Want me to stop it, Dr. Prabhu? Are you
Comment?
Okay. Here, Kakati wants to know whether these two gentlemen are realized soul or jnanis. So she asked, who am I and who are you? And all that she asked. And then King Vikrama answers that essentially you are Brahman and I am also Brahman. But the self is neither I nor you. It is the ignorant people. They have got the names and forms. But the self moves at the same time, does not move. But the self that contains, sustains the realities of time and space. Those who are enlightened realize it to be the immovable the knowledge, enlightened people, and the all-pervading reality, it moves faster than the mind. And then what is to be realized and what is not to be realized? He says Brahman is essential reality in every person that one has to be realized. So long one is unable to discover one's essential nature, the self is the essential nature, which is ever present reality, is conceived as a distant goal by the unenlightened. The enlightened, they have never realized what it is. The enlightened one realized that Brahman, Hari Om.
Yeah. You can say, like the first answer, it reminds me of that, I think the fourth or fifth verse in the mantra in the Ishavasya Upanishad, Taddejati, Tannaijati, Taddure, Tadvantike, Tadantarasya Sarvasya, Sarvasyasya Bahyataha. It moves, it doesn't move. It is right here, it is far. It is inside everything, it is outside of everything. Why? Because it is so subtle that it feels as if it is moving. When you think of something, Brahman being all pervading, Brahman is everywhere. If the mind suddenly thinks of Brahmaloka, Brahman is already there. If you think of suddenly the moon, everything is in that Brahman. Okay. But at the same time, for the ignorant, it is far away. But for the enlightened, it is his own self. So, though it is my own self, I have to put a lot of effort to know that. Why? Because of my identification with my body, mind, and the intellect and the vasanas. So by gradually converting myself from Rajasic and Tamasic to the Sattva, and by constant contemplation on this uh, knowledge from the scriptures, that I can establish myself in that self. So essential reality in me. Okay, Sarveshji, you want to continue, sir? Next two question and answers.
Okay.
Hari Om,
I am, sir.
what is that atom which contains the Meru mountains within itself? What is that which converts the world into a dust particle? What is that which, though atomic, cannot be contained even by thousands of miles? Brahman is that atom. It contains the entire universe within itself. The various world systems are like dust particles scintillating in a single ray of the effulgent self. What is that atom which is tasteless and yet the very essence of sweetness? The self is beyond the senses and therefore tasteless, but it is the source of all joy, the very embodiment of bliss, and therefore, paradoxically, all sense perceptions are sustained by the bliss of the self. The self is the essence of all perceptions, the essence of all sights, essence of all tastes, and the sweet essence behind all that exists. That's it. Here the same expression of Brahman is saying that he is all pervading, omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient. That kind of description we are following right through these question and answers here. And so he says that the senses are useless without the
Atman.
the self behind, which is illumining these sense organs. That is the previous last question.
Mhm.
Hari Om.
Hari Om. Thank you, sir. So yeah, so you can see when you read all these things, all your Upanishadic statements, like Kena Upanishad here, it is reminded of. Uh, it is the eye of the eye, ear of the ear, mind of the mind, prana of the prana, and because of which all these things are possible, but it by itself it does not see or hear or taste or act. So, but it is that blissful nature. So, very nice. Shobana, I want to continue with next two question answers, please.
Hari Om. What is that which lasts a moment but yet contains millions of ages within itself? What is that which is inactive and yet is the basis of all activities? The response is the self transcends time. Time and space are like drifting clouds before the vast sky of the self. Or time and space are like dream experiences arising within the mind of a dreamer. Within a moment of enlightenment, a long dream of the world process is terminated. Time and space are rolled up within a moment of eternity. What is the sustainer of seer, seen, and sight? What is that which contains the three periods and sustains them, even as a banyan seed sustains a mighty banyan tree? The self is the basis of the triad of seer, seen, and sight. It is the individual, immutable self that becomes a transient subject running from illusory objects and thus accumulates illusory impressions or karmas. The three worlds which are experienced as a result of one's karmas are contained in the self, even as the dreams are contained in the mind of a dreamer or a banyan tree is contained in the tiny seed. So the first question is about time. It's about what that lasts a moment but yet contains millions of years, and what is that is inactive and active. And the response is self, the self, because it transcends both time and space. And it says that time and space are like dream experiences arising within the mind of a dreamer. And when enlightenment happens, the long dream is terminated. And the time and space are rolled into that moment of eternity. And the next question is about the Triputi, the seer, seen, and sight. And what is that it contains the three worlds and sustains them even as a banyan seed sustains the big banyan tree. So here the response is that self is the basis for everything, and it is the immutable self that is the enlivening all the illusory objects, and and these objects create new impressions or karmas, and the three worlds are experienced through the karmas. And this kind of reminded me of Dridvishya Viveka when we're talking about the seer, seen, and sight. And also the banyan seed coming from a banyan tree reminded me of Urdhvamula Shakam, that kind of a reference to that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you, Amma. So you can see how beautifully we see here, like in Kaivalya Upanishad, it says Trisudamasu yadbhoktam bhokta bhogascha yadbhave tebhyo vilasana kshakshe chinmatroham sadashivaha. That which is different from the seer, seen, and the seeing. All the Triputi is that which is different from all the Triputi, and that is of the nature of pure consciousness. And it is the but without it, none of this sentiency is possible. All this sentiency and the names and forms are because of that Brahman alone. Anybody want to add anything?
I have a question to it.
Yes,
So,
sir.
what is that? Time and space are like dream experiences arising within the mind of a dreamer. Within a moment of enlightenment, the long dream of the world process is terminated. Is it because it is actually just saying that it's a momentary illusion in our mind? Is that how we should be taking it?
The way I look at it, understand it is giving the dream as an example. In the dream, you go through so many experiences as if it happened for so many days or months or years. But when you wake up, suddenly I say, ah, everything was just a dream in my own mind. All this time and space, everything was just a the same way when you wake up from this ignorance and get enlightened, then you realize, hey, all this world is nothing but a dream. The time and space are illusory. That's how I understood it. Anybody else got any other understanding? Oh,
Raghuji, we remember last week, I think I missed it, but I was reading through what was written in Shvetashatra Upanishads. There also the same mention was there. The comparison was given about, the material cause and how in the dream state, mind is both the material cause and the sentient cause. But similarly, in the state of illusion, Prakriti is both material cause and the illuminating cause. So in both status, these are all illusions and they don't exist.
yeah, yeah, correct. Yeah. So every Upanishad gives the same thing in different forms. So that's why we read all the Upanishads, not you are going to learn anything new, but to remind ourselves of that this truth, so that it continues to we continue to abide in that knowledge, and it becomes more like what Nididhyasanam. Okay,
And also,
Sudhirji.
even in the Leela story, proves that everything is in your mind. There is no time because she got 3 generations in within a matter of minutes. So,
Correct.
the Yoga Vashishta itself, Leela story tells it's a dream.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for bringing it back. So, all these examples are given by Vashishta to Rama to show the illusiveness of this world. How that you have to abide in that knowledge, Brahman. So, just like Vashishta Rishi had to tell Lord Rama all these things, that same thing we are going through it to continue to uh, make that knowledge firm in our own minds. Yeah, thank you. Okay, Sudhirji, you want to continue, sir?
Sure. Um, what is that rock-like reality before which even the Meru mountains become as tender as a lotus stalk? What is that rock which contains millions of mountains within itself? The self is invulnerable and immutable, while mighty mountains evenly crumble into dust. The self is unaffected by time and changes caused by time. Whose strength enables you to perform your duties? By whose strength do you protect your subjects and punish the evildoers? The strength of the self sustains all activities. The self is the reality behind the human ego. The self is a true knower, seer, enjoyer, and doer.
Want to comment?
Um, it is just re-emphasizing, everything is actually Brahman, right? It is
Right,
behind all our activities, whatever we are doing, and even the human ego and everything, all the even the Tripudi, right? Knower, seer, enjoyer, everything is actually him. That
right,
is actually re-emphasizing that
right.
fact.
Yeah,
And but that one, the other one is that the mighty mountains eventually crumbled into dust, the self unaffected by time and change. But why that real example is there? I just didn't get it. Is it because he is so powerful? Is that is what it shows?
The way I look at it is just like the example of the atom. The self is not an atom, but the word atom is used to show how subtle it is. It is imperceptible. The same way here, to taking the example of a rock, it's a rock is so strong and so firm, it is hard to break. But yeah, in the presence of the self, this rock is nothing. In the course of time, it crumbles down and becomes a dust. Okay. But this Atman or the pure self never changes. It never perishes. So that is the meaning I get from it, from the example of the rock. So
Okay. Yeah, that the question is what I said. What is that rock which contains millions of mountains within itself?
yeah,
That
we had to understand that rock not with the literal meaning, but with the meaning of rock. The self is immutable like a rock. Okay, in normal worldly thing, then they say, oh, the Himalayas, it is immutable. It cannot be moved. But when all this, what do we call the movement of the uh, what do you call under this
tectonic plate,
yeah,
tectonic.
right, tectonic plates happens, what happens to the Himalayas? It can go under the ocean. It can get covered up. Okay, but the self never changes. The self always remains the same. uh, so,
Okay, good.
So I just want to add that, the last sentence here, Sudhir was asking, what is the rock which contains millions of mountains within itself? I can compare it to the ocean, which contains millions of waves within itself. And
right,
yet, it's just one and the same.
correct, yeah.
Oh,
So the various comparisons for something that is incomparable. So, okay, is Uma Shankar here? Uma Shankar, you want to read, Amma, the next three paragraphs?
The king continued to expand the nature of the self, since all the Kartike, Kartak, Kar, Kar, what is
Karkate's questions were
Karkate's questions were designed to test his understanding of the self. Oh, Karkati, you have asked me about the nature of the self. It is the self which is the support of three states of consciousness: waking, dream, and deep sleep. It is attained when all the desires of the mind are removed. In fact, it is the communication of all desires. The self expresses itself in the form of entire creation, and it is the self that withdraws this entire world into itself during dissolution. The self is beyond the reach of the mind and senses, and therefore it is the non existent for the ignorant. But since it is the very source of the senses and the mind, it is directly perceived as the only reality by the enlightened.
yeah. Want to comment?
I think only enlightened people
Yeah, the enlightened people, though they appear to be like a regular person, but they are aware of that self. They are always abiding in that knowledge of the self. And so, what is not available to an ignorant person, because he thinks that, hey, this world is the only reality. But the enlightened person knows that all this world is just names and forms of that pure reality. So
is
it is
just a
directly
dream.
perceived as the only reality by the enlightened, because everything is nothing but Brahman with names and forms. So, Vijay, you want to continue with the next 3 paragraphs, sir?
Just as numerous flowers, that's the one, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just as numerous flowers are contained in honey, so all sensual enjoyment are essentially contained in the cell. As nectar from different flowers blend into our one honey, so too different experiences from the object of the senses are transformed into undifferentiated experience of divine bliss in the state of self-realization. Just as an elephant cannot hide itself in a field covered with the tiny grasses, so the glory of self cannot be hidden by the illusory names and the world is unable to hide them. Just as sea is contained in a sea, so the entire world is contained in it. So, who sees non-duality is a true seer. He is knower of the self.
Want to comment?
So, here is again what here is explaining is self is in everything, everything is in the self. Or in another way of looking at it is self is the Atman is the substratum of everything. For example, you've got bliss or happiness, state of realization in that level is everything is within the self. So here he gives an example of honey is pulled from several flowers. So is different experience of the object is engulfed in the senses. That senses, sorry, that engulfed in the Atman. That Atman in different jivas gives the spirit to those jivas, and those jivas are experiencing several things. So, in a sense, he's talking about once again how is Atman, Brahman, is substratum of everything.
Yeah, yeah. So, that honey example is so beautiful. For a bee, if you take a bee, for bee, there might be thousands of flowers, but unless there is honey, nothing exists. Okay. Only thing that exists is that honey. Okay. And so it gets attracted to the honey. And the same way, when we see the honey in a honeycomb, what is it? It is nothing but the essence of all the flowers. So, like that, the bliss of Brahman is the essence of all the bliss you experience through the senses, yeah, from the worldly objects. And the enlightened person experiences that bliss, which is actually the essence of all the worldly experiences. And so, since he really enjoys that bliss of the self, he really is not desirous of the worldly objects. So that's why I said the senses, all the object, the different experience from the objects of the senses are transformed into the undifferentiated experience of the divine bliss in the state of realization. The same way that for an ignorant person, it is just like trying to find a needle in the darkness. Okay, he won't be able to find it. But for an enlightened person, it is just like an elephant. Okay, can you not recognize the elephant in a field? For the enlightened person, they like that the Atman is ever present. It cannot be hidden from the view, from the uh, divine sight of that person. They're not talking of the eyes, but the uh, divine eye of the consciousness. Okay.
Rajji, so there is another clarification. So here it says, as a nectar from different flowers blend into one honey. So then they said, okay, different experiences from the objects of senses are transformed into an undifferentiated experience of divine bliss. like that in the state of self-realization. So we are actually this is actually the it actually says that, at least I understood like that, all our senses experiences are actually culminated into one as a divine bliss. But we actually say that we should not be under under the influences of sense too, right?
Yeah. So you and I, when we experience like a halwa or a beautiful flower or a beautiful music from my ear or a beautiful soft object in my no my hands, all these things, that happiness that I get, I attribute it to that particular object. But the happiness that you get is what? Nothing but that bliss of the self manifesting when you perceive that object. And the enlightened person is already experiencing that bliss of the self, being identified with that self. And so he might still enjoy a good cup of coffee or good tasty food and all that. But for him, whether this objective pleasure is there or not, he is always reveling in that bliss of the self, that undifferentiated experience of the divine bliss that he is constantly experiencing. For me, oh, if I see an object, I get attracted. But for a realized person, doesn't really matter. Okay, once it is there or not, is always in that state of bliss. That's how I understood it.
Okay. Thank you, Raji.
So we'll continue with is Anjaneyulu here today? No. Ashwin not here. Dr. Nuligaru. Okay. So, Dinesh ji, you want to continue, sir?
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Just as a tree is contained in a seed, so the entire world is contained in Brahman. He who sees non-duality is a true seer. He is a knower of the self. In fact, Brahman negates the very mind and all mental concepts. Therefore, Brahman is neither duality nor non-duality. Brahman is not subtle, not gross, not born, not unborn, not gentle, not cruel, not the objects of the world, not this world, not the subtle world. Brahman is neither existent nor non-existent. One who knows Brahman ever abides in that pure consciousness, wherein the world is negated. Shri Vashishta continued, Karkati was immensely pleased to discover that both the king and his minister were enlightened sages. Assuming the form of a gentle lady, she agreed to live in his palace, enjoying the good association of the king. She also agreed to promote the laws of righteousness by feeding on those who were sentenced to death. Whenever the king caught some criminals, she took them into remote parts of the mountains, assumed her terrible form, and fed upon them.
Want to continue? Want to comment?
Yeah. So first is the tree is contained in a seed. Same thing. That's what Shri Krishna, when he opened his mouth to Yashoda Maya, and she wanted to see what he was eating, because somebody had, or his friend had told that he was eating the dirt. The next thing she sees is the whole universe inside his mouth. And that's what reminds me here, that everything, if you look at it, the whole world, this planet, other planets, everything lies within Brahman. In order to realize that, it's the state of consciousness. Once we have in that pure consciousness, we get to experience that. We get to experience that oneness. Until then, it all duality. It's me and you and somebody else.
Yeah.
So that's what the first two paragraphs said. And after the next one, Karkati, when she was pleased with the answer she got from the king and his minister, and she decided to live in their palace and basically agreed to promote the laws of righteousness by feeding upon the people who were bad.
Yeah. So I can see that the minister answered the first few questions, and then from that last on page 38, you see the king continued. That's where the king started answering questions, and after that, then she realized both are enlightened people, and so she has being enlightened person, being capable of assuming any form, she assumed the form of a beautiful damsel and wanted to live and guide them in the administration of their country. So you can say how if you are wise, wise people get attracted to you. Okay, and even the enlightened person wants to help you progress in your spiritual life. That's why they say that you don't go and look for a guru, you keep on improving yourself, and then Bhagavan will send you the guru. So that's what exactly happened here. And so these two, king and the minister, got exposed to Karkati, and being enlightened Karkati, that she revealed herself nature to them, and she was extremely happy with them. So, okay, is Karpagam here today? So a lot of people are not here. And Mano Naidu, you want to continue, Amma?
Okay. As time passed, Karkati attained disembodied salvation. But even today, the descendants of King Vikrama have installed a statue of Karkati in order to receive divine protection from her blessed memory. Karkati is now adored as Kandara Devi, the goddess who abides in caves, and Mangala Devi, the goddess who gives auspiciousness. The principle of duality is the demon that must be overcome in the state of realization. As long as ignorance dominates one's consciousness, this demon exists in her terrible form, creating forces of darkness such as anger, hatred, pride, jealousy, and passion. But when Vidya dominates one's consciousness, this demon becomes a goddess, feeding upon these dark forces and the other impurities of the mind. She promotes dispassion, discrimination, cosmic love, and the manifold expressions of divine goodness in human personality. The goddess exists in one's own heart. She is, in fact, pure consciousness, the remover of evil and the giver of immortality.
Want to comment?
These two really gives us a lot of information about our own self. If as long as, like Karkati, you want to be like a demon, having all the darkness in you, like the anger, hatred, pride, jealousy, passion, all those things, and you will be like the demon. And when you gets the vidya and becomes when you gets the vidya and gets the knowledge, and you become the goddess, like promoting the dispassion, discrimination, cosmic love, and the manifold expression of divine goodness in human personality, you will become the goddess. And every one of us have this goddess in our own heart. And in fact, that is the pure consciousness. What at the end they're saying that the pure consciousness that takes away the evil and gives, and the giver of immortality.
Yeah.
And of course, when she became like that, they installed her statue, the King Vikrama, and then gave her to get the protection from her blessings, and gave her the name of the Kandara Devi and the Mangala Devi, two names of the goddesses.
Yeah. Thank you, Ma. You explained it so beautifully, I don't need to add anything. Only thing I wanted to say is, it looks like there's a real story that Karkati is still worshipped in some places as Kandara Devi and Mangala Devi. And the last paragraph is nothing but the symbolism that our Jyotirmananda ji is very good in bringing out symbolism from these stories. Okay. The Rakshasi Karkati is the ignorant people, and the goddess Karkati is our when we become virtuous and enlightened. So everything is within us, whether we remain as a Rakshasi Karkati or Devi Karkati. It is in our own hands. So our own sadhana is becoming that Devi goddess Karkati. So very nice. And then I will continue with the Nag, I guess. Maya is not here.
Section 84. Differences exist merely in name. Sri Vashishta continued, O Rama, this Chitta, total mind, itself has expanded itself into this world process. Just as oil cannot exist in sand, so this world does not exist in the self. The mind tinged with attachment, hatred, and affliction is called the world process. When a person is freed from these affliction, the world process is said to have terminated for him. It is the chitta that is desired, sustained, adored, and reflected upon in this illusory world process. In other words, all these differences are nothing but modification of the mind, which in turn is but a mirage in the vast expansion of the self. So I have one question on this. This one says, just as oil cannot exist in sand, the world does not exist in the self. But in the previous section, when they give the example of the seed and the tree is actually coming from seed. So basically, the tree exists in the seed, but the seed is not exist in the tree. The same way, the world coming from self, but the self is not in the world. So this one here, it is contradicting that the world does not exist in the self, meaning he's saying the tree is not exist in the seed. I think it is kind of contradicting.
One comment on that seed in the tree in the seed. Okay, it actually something like it does have it, but with the world around, say, with additional parameter only, that seed will become a tree. So we cannot really just say that, because that is the world is actually required for the well self to manifest.
No, don't bring the world here. These are two different things.
No, what I meant is, we cannot just put saying that, that is always, I felt it, and we always say that the tree is inside the seed. Yes, but it actually have got the necessary, what is that called, items or things to make it as a tree. But for that, you have to need an lot of external things to make it the seed to become a tree, right?
No, wait. Take the example, don't go deeper into the example. The example is the tree comes from the seed. There is no question about that. Whether it world process, water, all those things doesn't matter. Tree comes from the seed. That example was given to show the world come from Brahman, the self. That was the example, the tree seed example is for. Here it says the world does not exist in the self. That is my confusion or contradiction.
Okay. The way I understand is, you look at one of them, you look at the world as that we experience. Where did this world come from? The world is come from the subtle Brahman. And so the seed and tree example are to show the seed is so tiny. The tininess of the seed is compared to the subtleness of the Brahman. And the vastness of and various forms, branch, stem, roots, fruit, seeds, leaves, all that is compared to the various names and forms of the world. Okay. And the other example that you are giving is to show that everything is illusory. Okay. Nothing really exists in Brahman, that it is just an appearance. So we are taking from the two of them appear contradictory, but they are from two different points of view. They are given, examples are given. So, okay, who is supposed to read next? Nag read it, right?
Me.
And Rakesh Kumar next, I guess.
Yes. The chitta has two aspects, consciousness and unconscious.
Did Akilama read?
No.
Yeah, she is here.
No, did she read? She didn't read, I think.
No, she didn't.
Please, go ahead, Amma. I forgot. I'm sorry.
It is the chitta that is desired, sustained, adored, and reflected upon in this illusory world process. In other words, all these differences are nothing but modifications of the mind, which in turn is but a mirage in the vast expansion of the self. The chitta has two aspects, conscious and unconscious. The conscious aspect of the reality is the reality which underlies all names and forms. But the unconscious aspect is the basis of all this material creation and is in itself illusory and non-existent. In the beginning, Brahma, the creator, beheld the world as dreams arising in his mind, which is ever permeated by the light of the self, even like a placid stream illumined by the sun. So in the first paragraph, they talk about the chitta or the mind stuff, and this is the world process itself is nothing but the modification of the mind itself. Everything that we see is nothing but a modification of the mind. But that mind itself has two aspects, the conscious and the unconscious aspect. So the unconscious aspect is the one that Brahman is the creator of everything, and that is the part that we don't see. We see what we see in this world of names and forms. And that is the basis for all the creation. That Brahman itself is the creation of all this world. So how Brahma created this world by just having a dream arising in his mind, and it is the light of the self that projects the dream, and it gives it the light like the sun gives us the light. That is how he has compared it here.
Right. Yeah. So the second paragraph is beautifully is like Lord Krishna says in 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, I have two forms. One is my upper nature and the higher nature and the lower nature, para and apara natures. The apara is the five elements, mana, buddhi and ahankara, and the para is the awareness of the conscious aspect. So, in the last paragraph that you read, you can see that just like we imagine everything in the dream as real, that here Brahma is actively imagining all these things, and as he thinks, all the world is created. So we are actually in the mind of that Brahmaji or the creator. So, and as little things of his nature, we all are experiencing this world as real. But Brahmaji knows everything is just created by his mind, but we ignorantly think everything is real. So if we get enlightened, then we become Brahmaji. So,
quick question. Brahmaji himself is from the dream of self or self-imagined Brahma. Brahma himself doesn't exist, correct?
yeah, Brahmaji is a total mind. Okay, so we call him Brahmaji with the four heads, four faces, and things like that, just to give a form. But we have to understand that Brahmaji is nothing but the total mind or the Hiranyagarbha.
Raghuji, on that, see here in that the second paragraph, which this says that conscious aspect is a reality which underlies all names and forms. Okay, that is actually as we know it. But the unconscious aspect is the basis for all the material creation. All the material creation only we actually equate to all the names and forms, right? So
Right.
then how we differentiate? What exactly is that mean? It actually, the conscious aspect is a reality which the names and forms. Then the next paragraph is the unconscious aspect is also the basis of all material creation.
Yeah, here the word unconscious means the inert. The conscious means the sentiency of the consciousness of the Brahman. Okay, and let me read from the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, if I can read it 1 second. It says, Gnanam teham savignanam idam vakshyamya sheshataha yagnatva neha bhuyon gnatavyam avasishyate. He says, I'm going to talk to you about the knowledge and the Gnanam and the Vignanam, knowing which that you will be free of all the doubts. He says, and I'm sorry, I'm going to skip one sloka. He says, Bhumi rapo nalo vayuho kammano buddhirevacha ahankaram iti yamme binna prakriti rashtada. He says, the earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, reason, and the ego, these constitute my nature, eightfold divided. So that is the unconscious aspect we are reading in this book. And he goes on to say, अपरेयमितस्त्वन्यां प्रकृतिं विद्धि मे परां जीवभूतां महाबाहो ययेदं धार्यते जगतो. He says, other than this, by which the whole universe is sustained, know it to be my higher or spiritual nature in the form of Jiva, the life principle. And so, the conscious aspect here is the Paraprakriti, and so-called the word unconscious means the Aparaprakriti.
Okay.
Conscious aspect is Paraprakriti, and the unconscious aspect, the 5 elements and all that, is the Aparaprakriti. So, okay, let's continue. Nag finished, right? Rakesh Kumar next.
Yes.
Did Nag finish or Nag has not finished yet?
Finished.
No, I did.
Pardon?
I finished.
Okay. Rakesh ji, continue, sir.
Okay. The chitta is like a child who imagines the ghost of the birth process in the darkness of ignorance. When the chitta is led to enlightenment, it discovers its unchanging identity as a self. Once the pure self assumes the form of chitta, it becomes reflected through the latter into the form of word process. O Rama, I will tell you the story of son of Indu, Anudevakhana, to illustrate this point. The story's illustrations, parables, and poetic images that are used to scriptures are like the serious beams of moonlight to dispel the darkness of ignorance. Therefore, O Rama, listen to the following story. It's talking about Chitta is like a child and who imagines ghosts in the word process in the darkness of ignorance, because once we are ignorant, we are not really wise and we are in the word process completely. But he said when the chitta gets into the enlightenment and then it discovers the unchanging identity of the self, then he knows what he is, because before that he was all involved with non he was not really enlightened. Once the pure self assumes the form of the chitta, it becomes refracted to the latter into the form of the word process. So he's trying to tell the story of the Hindu sun to illustrate, because he said the scriptures, stories, illustrations, and images are used to scriptures to clarify these points which I have trying to mention. So he's telling Rama to listen to the complete story. He's going to start now.
Yeah, good, very good. Thank you. So there was a person by name Indu in the Himalayan region, and he and his wife had no children, and they had to do a lot of tapas and to Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva blessed them with 10 children, and so the children of Indu are called the Aindavas. And so the story of them is called Aindavopakyana. So that's what we are going to see. So, okay, who is supposed to do it? Ratnam, continue.
Section 85. To his amazement, Brahma sees 10 world systems. Sri Vashishta continued, O Rama, once upon a time, I had asked divine Brahma, the creator himself, about the mystery of creation. He told me the following story. Brahma said, just as whirlpools arise in the ocean, so worlds arise in the ocean of the mind. It so happened once that I had just awakened from the night of dissolution of the world and was ready to create another world system. I directed my gaze into the vastness of infinity, and there was neither darkness nor light. Then, with the help of my subtle mind, I began to project the world. But to my amazement, I saw before me 10 Brahmas, creators seated on swans, like reflections on myself in a mirror. Each Brahma had already created a world system, and in each world there were stars that twinkled, oceans that surged, rivers that flowed, a sun that shone, and winds that blew. In each world system, there were gods, humans, demons, and other living beings. So here, when Vashishta, is continuing this story to Rama, and then he said, he asked one time Brahma about what is the creation of this mystery, and then Brahma tells the story. How everything rises just like in the ocean, the whirlpools. This is how, like in this world, the Brahma also creates all this world.
Very nice. So we all know that 1000 Mahayugas constitute one day of Brahmaji. And another 1000 Mahayugas constitutes one night of Brahmaji. So, in one cycle, that after 1000 Mahayugas of sleep, when he opened his eyes to create, just like when we wake up in the morning, then suddenly the whole world opens up, just like what it was the previous day. And so, like that, when he opened up, what he saw was actually 10 Brahmajis in front of him. Hey, how did these people come from? Where did they come from? And so I'm not going to tell you the story. I'm going to continue so that we all listen to it. So, and Sarvesh, do you want to continue, sir?
Where is it? Oh.
No, this.
Each world system was thickly populated by living beings, and each appeared like a pomegranate fruit containing numerous souls. And in each world system, there were expressions of time and space, each having its moment, hour, day, month, and year, as well as physical extensions of space. Seeing this, I was confounded. I continued to gaze for a while, and then, by my mental will, I drew the sun god of a nearby world system to myself and said, "O sun god, adorations to you. Please explain your identity to me and tell me about these worlds. How have they been created?" The sun god replied, "O creator, you already know the secret of creation. However, I will comply with your request. Listen to the story of the creation of the world system." So it's just a story that we have to follow.
Yeah. As though unknown to him, when he was asleep, these world systems were there in the previous world when dissolution happened, and they appeared again now. So we will continue to see the story. And Shobhanama, continue.
Section 86. The 10 sons of Indu practice meditation. The sun god began, O god of gods, in the last world you created, in the valleys of the Kailasa mountains, there existed a province known as Suvarnajata. There lived a Brahmin known as Indu, who was best known among the knowers of Brahman. Indu Brahmana had a loving wife, but he had no children. Desirous of children, both Indu and his wife practiced intense austerities in order to receive the blessing of Lord Shiva. In course of time, Lord Shiva blessed them with 10 sons. These children became well versed in the Vedas when they were only 7 years old. Their parents passed away at that time. Since they were enlightened, they became free from the world process. But these 10 were grief-stricken. They conversed among themselves. What is really desirable in this world? What is the goal that must be attained? Even the post of Indrahood is perishable and not worth desiring. What then should we work for? So the story begins, and and it says the sun god begins saying that in the valleys of Kailasha mountains there existed a Brahmin called Indu and his wife, and they didn't have any children, so they practiced austerities, and so Lord Shiva blessed them with 10 sons. But and as all these 10 children were well versed in Vedas, but the parents passed away when they were 7 years old, and because of that they were full of grief, and they asked questions among themselves about what is really desirable in the world, what is the goal that must be attained, and even if Indrahood is perishable, then is it worth having? So the story continues.
Yeah, yeah. Let's continue. Sudhirji, you want to finish the rest of it from this chapter?
Yes. The eldest brother, the eldest brother said in a convincing voice, I think that the attainment of Brahmahood, creatorship, is the ideal goal worth striving for. O brothers, let us practice meditation and assert deep within our consciousness. I am the divine creator, Brahma. I am the originator as well as the destroyer of this world. I am the luminous deity. They all listened to the advice of the eldest brother and began to practice intense meditation, having seated themselves in the meditative poses and keeping their bodies as steady as painted pictures. They meditated in the following manner: I am Brahma, the creator. I am the deity who is worshipped by all living beings. I am accompanied by Goddess Saraswati, Gayatri, and others. I am prized by sages and saints. This entire world exists within me, like the rising and falling of waves. Numerous living beings proceed from me and are drawn back into me. I am the God of gods. I am the creator. Thus, these sons of Hindu passed into a state of profound samadhi, which lasted for a long, long time. Yeah, that it is actually, the 10 brothers is actually the elder brother is actually suggesting them to do meditation and trying to make, kind of a getting into this is actually something about the realization. Yeah? They are actually realize and they are actually trying to practice now realization by meditation, and they themselves kind of preaching themselves. He is the creator. They are the creator, Brahma, and all those, they are the deity worshipped by all the beings, and the world exists within him, within them. So that is what. And then now they are actually passed into a samadhi stage.
Okay.
I just want to comment on one additional thing on this, because I was actually listening to Balakrishna Nair sir's one of the Gita class. There in actually will say that in the end, we all hear that this munis actually practice tapas for thousands of years and bring say Vishnu or Shiva in front of them as like, right, and they get boons from them, and then they disappear. Correct. So what he was saying, that you concentrate, and you, once you realize your conscious, that conscious itself is actually manifest as God in front of you. And then as a human being, we will not be able to concentrate so long, as once we lose the concentration, the God goes, and I mean he disappears. So that's what the story which I just remembered when I read this. So here, what they say is that they are actually preaching themselves, and they're conscious, they are actually telling them, I am the God. It is something like we all should be, and to make them realize as themselves. That is what actually the story.
Right. Thank you. Very nice. You are thinking through the whole thing. So the way I interpret this one, you're all free to uh, uh, comment on it and tell me if I'm wrong. So apparently, though they were well versed in the Vedas, I feel that they were well versed in the Karmakanda portion of the Vedas and the creation. They were not given the Atma Gnanam, that you are that pure Brahman. And so, with that knowledge that they had acquired from, I don't know whether just from the father or from the other teachers, that they realized, hey, the highest is the Brahmaji, the creator, who created this world in which we are in. And so, the highest place that we can reach is the Brahmaji. So, we want to become one like Brahmaji. So, that's how they contemplated. I am the divine creator, Brahma. I am the originator as well as the destroyer of the world. I am the luminous deity. That's how they continue to meditate. And then naturally, as it went on for years and years and years, and their bodies became so steady, uninterrupted meditation, and they became that Brahmajis, each one of them in their own minds, and then they started creating their own worlds, and which was densely populated, as it was said before, when this original Brahmaji opened his eyes. Okay. And so how the, but if they knew the knowledge that Atmagnanam, they would have meditated for liberation. But they only thing they knew was the highest is Brahmaji, so we want to become like Brahma. So another Brahma. So let us see what happens.
One joke around, don't sleep, somebody else will come come to your place. Because Brahmaji going to sleep, some 10 people actually showed up as Brahma.
All right. No, it's not a question of sleep. It's a question of start imagining things,
Yeah, no, I
creating
got that.
things.
No, I
And
got
what you created before you go to sleep, and then it will come to haunt you the next morning. It will continue to grow. So, okay, Sudhirji finished, right? So, next, Uma Shankar. You want to read, Amma?
In section 87, the sons of India become creators of the world system. The sun god continued, O adorable Brahma, the sons of Hindu Brahmana remained immersed in samadhi until their bodies due to
Bodies.
the bodies, sorry, bodies due to the ravages caused by the sun and been perished. Finally, their bodies were eaten up by the birds and beasts of the wilderness. Despite the loss of their bodies, the
Aindavas.
Aindavas, the son of Hindu, continued to maintain their mental awareness. Each of them felt that he was the Brahma, the creator. Even during the dissolution of the world to which they belonged, they were busy with the creation of their mentally protected worlds.
Finish it up.
That is the reason, O Creator, why you found these world systems even before you could commence your own work of creation. I happen to be a sun god in one of these systems. This is a mystery behind these 10 worlds and other creators. You know the mystery of creation. You have honored me by asking me to explain this phenomenon to you. Indeed, all this world exists as illusion in the vast expansion of the Chitta. So this is not really true that there is 10 different creations, right?
What do you mean?
They said it's just an illusion, right?
Yeah, everything is an illusion, but in that illusion, that Brahmaji, after his one kalpa of night was over, when he woke up, he saw these 10 Brahmajis in front of him. Hey, where did these Brahmajis come from? And so Brahmaji asked one of the nearest creations, the sun god, and hey, what is going on here? Okay. So apparently, the sun, only thing way I can assume is, though sun was a part of that one
Later.
creation of one of those 10 Brahmajis, apparently he was enlightened. He knew what is going on. Otherwise, how can he tell? Okay. And so he explained to Brahmaji the whole story of the Hindu and the Aindavas and how they meditated and dropped their body, and because of their constant meditation through the years of assuming that they are real creators, they became the creators, and through their mind they have created all this 10 world systems. So we will continue and see the completion of the story in the next class. So, only thing that that I couldn't understand from the whole thing is when Brahmaji went to sleep, all these jivas also should have gone to sleep. But now these jivas continue to meditate and had created this 10 world. They had become Brahmajis. And so how all those things, I think we should not be asking too many questions, I feel. So,
The 10 worlds and 10 suns, how can there will be a sun?
no. Each world, okay, you have to look at it as this solar system. Okay. In this world, there is a sun. The same way, whenever there is another world, there is a sun god who is giving the light to that world. So that's how I look at it. There's so many complex issues here, but I feel that we should just take the story for its face value, not go deep into the story and try to find solutions there. So that's why, just like any other examples that we just take that example for its face value, not look at the other aspects. Because if every aspect has to match with the story, then so example doesn't become really an example. So
I wonder what they have written in the original Yoga Vasishtha.
I will give you the book if you want to read.
I have the books. I have all volumes of Yoga Vasishtha. Raghuji. Book
Why
is not
are you not reading them?
I'm not reading the original. They are this big, this big books, 4 of them.
Yeah, that's the reason. This last 2-3 chapters that we read, I read through that. Okay, and there's a lot of elaboration and how they meditated, how long they meditated, and all those things. But the Karkati story was too elaborate, and particularly the question and answers, that it was actually something like a 12 or 14 pages in small letters. So I was not able to follow that one. So. But otherwise, the story was exactly the same thing. There's no difference in these chapters 84, 85, 86. It's exactly the same as what is in the original book, except Swamiji has condensed them. So, ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ. So may I ask Rakesh ji to do the summary next class?
Yes, sir, I will.
Okay, very good.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om, everyone.
Raghuji, Hari Om, Geetaji.
Hariom Raghuji.
Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari
Hari
Om.
Om.
Class went by very fast, Raghuji. It went like that.
Yeah, you are right. That's why since it's a story kind of a thing, that's why I thought even an hour and a half is okay. But something
Yeah.
like a Upanishad, we need to have only 1 hour. So
Thank you,
Hari
Raghuji.
Om and Hari Om.
Thank
Hari
you.
Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.